Hello everyone, my name is Zero, and this will be our first installment of Unseen Threat. In this new series we'll be featuring unconventional Kha'Zix strategies, aimed at anyone who might be interested in exploring new Kha'Zix playstyles. Today, I will be giving a general overview of playing Comet Kha top. I'll be going over the optimal runes, build paths, skill orders, laning phase, and mid to late game. First off, let's go over runes. These are the main sorcery runes you'll want to go. The last sorcery rune is up to preference, though you will usually want to go Scorch for laning power, and if Comet comes off cooldown before the Scorch hits and after your ability hits, Comet will proc off of Scorch. For your secondary runes, there are a ton of different viable options. It's mostly up to preference, but usually it's a pick between Domination and Inspiration. For Domination you will take Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter. For Inspiration, you would take Cosmic Insight and a second rune based off of preference. With Domination, you have a better ability to fight in lane thanks to Taste of Blood, and you're able to clear jungle camps effectively with Ravenous Hunter, without losing much health. With Inspiration, Cosmic Insight allows you to maximize on your poke potential, and the other rune that you choose will have its added benefits as well. Now that runes are out of the way, let's go into your skill order. You will always want to max your W first. Your skill order should look like this. The higher level your W is, the more efficient it is at turning mana back into health. Evolving W is quintessential for the playstyle, and there are multiple reasons for this. And you'll notice throughout the video, all post-6 plays, cheeses, laning patterns, and so forth all revolve around having your W evolved. Your second evolution is mostly up to preference between E and R, where you end up getting the other one at 16. There are some cases where you might want to take Q evolve, but those are rare, and my preference is to just never bother with it. When it comes to itemization, you will always want to start with a corrupting potion. At your first back, you'll want to look into getting Tiamat. After that, you will go into full lethality, like normal. If you went with Inspiration, you might want to look into skipping Tiamat to hit your cooldown reduction cap early. Hitting the cooldown reduction cap is much easier than you might initially think. And if you are trying to hit it as fast as possible, you might want to consider building Black Cleaver, as not only does it give you 20% CDR, but it also gives you movement speed whenever you hit something with your W. This makes it so that the delta in movement speed between you and your opponent is even greater than it would be otherwise. If you see that there are multiple squishies on the enemy team, think Syndra, Caitlyn, Jinx, Zyra, Fiddlesticks, you also have the option of going Muramana for an unholy power spike. When it evolves into Muramana, it becomes the best item on Kha'Zix in the game by far. This is thanks to the fact that its passive, Shock, is able to proc twice when you have your passive, Unseen Threat, up. This means that when your passive is up, you can get it to instantly proc 3 times with your Q auto combo. The downside is that you'll be sacrificing on combat power before it upgrades. During that time, you'll effectively have increased sustain thanks to the mana it provides, though you should definitely expect to be weaker before it turns into Muramana. If you manage to get Muramana and Duskblade at the same time, the gates of heaven will open, and you will instantly gain 20 LP due to the absurdly strong power spike you will hit. Now, onto the laning phase. There are 3 kinds of matchups you'll commonly find yourself against: Bruisers, ranged champions, and tanks. Bruisers will typically be the most difficult to play against, with champions like Kled, Renekton, and Yasuo being uninstall-worthy levels of pain. For most melee matchups, you can contest at level 1 by hard pushing and using the brush to reset your passive and get a huge health lead thanks to your W. If you hit level 2 first, you can often get them to blow their flash by jumping in on them if you have already gotten a good trade. If you are hard smurfing, you might even consider taking Ignite to kill the person at this point. Champions like Jax and Irelia are good examples of champions that this can work against, but champions like Kled and Darius will not lose level 1 trades, so don't always assume you'll beat everyone by doing this. Next, we have ranged matchups. There are definitely ways to trade into certain matchups like Vladimir and Jace, but other ranged champions like Teemo and Vayne will have your number most of the time. Try to sit back and wait till level 6, where you basically become a ranged champion yourself. At that point, you'll be able to use your W to not only clear the wave, but also potentially poke the ranged champion out. With your W having damage, healing, and a slow, and clearing the wave at the same time, you can often start hard winning the lane like this. If you get ahead in these matchups, you can often start snowballing hard. This is thanks to the fact that they will often stand at the backline minions, and you can jump in on them at any time and insta-clear the backline minions and get ISO damage on them. As for tanks, these are most commonly going to be farm it out kind of lanes, which is not necessarily a bad thing. While you might be able to kill them in the early levels, the moment they start stacking armor is usually the point where fighting them becomes pointless. You'll want to be sure you're either scaling up and farming or frequently roaming to avoid wanting to kill yourself from the boredom. For all laning matchups in general, after the first few waves where you might be able to cheese an advantage, the biggest power spikes you're looking for are usually going to be level 6 and Tiamat. Once you have your W evolved, as well as having Tiamat, you can clear the wave exceptionally fast. This gives you time to either poke out your opponent with W, which they can't fight back against due to the 90% slow, or you are able to take jungle camps, roam mid, help your jungler invade, and generally stay proactive. Time is money, and being able to clear the wave as fast as possible allows you to have more agency on the map. In lane, once you have W evolved and Tiamat, there are a few cheese strategies you can try doing. One of them, for example, is if the enemy top laner is confident enough to walk up and try to take a plate, you can jump in on them and insta-clear the wave with your W and Tiamat. At this point, your enemy laner will have a slow on them, already have taken damage, have turret aggro since there are no minions around them, and be isolated to increase your Q damage. You can get kills like this in a lot of your games if the enemy top laner is careless. Once you reach level 6, avoiding ganks becomes a lot easier thanks to your W. The massive slow allows you to simply walk away from an otherwise intimidating gank. You will often be able to get your slow off on both people, and most of the time the enemy jungler will have a 90% slow on them thanks to the fact that they're coming from the jungle where there are no minions to save them from isolation. On to the mid game. There are 3 essential areas you'll want to focus on: pick potential, poking, and teamfight utility. For pick potential, in this stage of the game, you should be reaching your larger power spikes, allowing you to one-shot squishies pretty reliably. That said, only relying on one-shotting someone is not the way you can make picks. Thanks to your evolved W, if you hit an isolated target and you have your teammates around you, it can often lead directly into a kill, thanks to the 90% slow. And this will allow you to further capitalize by taking objectives. Additionally, you can often save your teammates by throwing out a W and slowing everyone who is chasing them without putting yourself in any danger, and potentially catch overreaching targets out instead. As for poking, your void spikes connecting ensures that your comet will hit every time you throw it out. This combination alone allows you to have insane poke damage, and if you get 45% CDR, then it's on a 5-second cooldown. This also gives you potent sieging and kiting potential. Additionally, this can be used as a huge zoning tool for objectives. In teamfights, you have one key factor you should always be asking yourself: should I go in and try to finish someone off, or is the risk too high to make an attempt? If the answer is to commit, for example, let's say that the enemy Kog'Maw is not being protected by his tanks and you have an opening, then you jump in like normal and try to make the outplay, get kills, and get out. If the answer is to not go in, you always have the option of staying back and throwing out W's. While it might not seem like much, applying a huge slow and dealing damage is actually extremely valuable in teamfights and often goes unnoticed by the enemy team, and sometimes your team as well, to be honest. One last thing to note is that if you have another carry threat on your team, mid laner or ADC usually, you can also peel for them by providing your W to dissuade or punish enemies that are trying to jump on them. Overall, your goals in the mid game are going to vary across games, but luckily you can adapt to most situations due to the value that you'll be providing your team in terms of utility and assassination potential. To summarize Comet Kha top, you'll be offering reliable poke, zoning, pick potential, and a strong teamfight presence, as well as being extremely oppressive when ahead and having great forms of sustain and lane. With that said, some of the key weaknesses are that certain matchups can be extremely brutal. You're also giving up on having a tank in the top lane, which can sometimes be detrimental to your team comp. And lastly, teammates can easily tilt just by you picking Kha'Zix top. There are a few tips you'll want to keep in mind when playing Kha'Zix top. Your W can actually go through minions once you have it evolved to hit the enemy top laner like this. Remember to brush wave versus champions that you try to duel early, so you can fully utilize your passive. Also, if you're going Mirror Mana, avoid fighting early until it fully evolves. Lastly, the element of surprise is a real thing in League of Legends, and coming out of nowhere and getting a pick right before a crucial objective can often lead to game-securing leads. You should give Kha top a try if you want an entirely new look on playing an assassin that emphasizes on poke potential and safe and effective teamfighting. That concludes our first edition of Unseen Threat. If you have any feedback, please let us know in the comments down below. If you'd like to see more of my gameplay with Kha top, you can check me out on my Twitch where I stream, or my YouTube where I sometimes upload random videos. Links to both of those in the description. Thanks for watching.
Oh. Wait, that's a Kha'Zix with fucking Arcane Comet, and my top lane lost to it.